Riddle me this. What do chainsaws and women have in common? The answer is that I'm terrified of both. Hello? What's that sound? Oh, Jesus Christ! Motorslice is a game all about slicing motors. Oh, come on, cut me some slack. The video just started. The game itself takes place within an absolutely gorgeous megastructure, one which you'll have the pleasure of traversing while playing as this cute, greenish blue-haired girl wielding a chainsaw sword. Okay, technically that's not entirely true. You're actually taking on the role of this floating magic 8-ball. Also known as Orby, will serve as your point of view while you control this girl who's simply known as P. She's been sent out to this towering megastructure to fulfill her role as a slicer. Slicer? I hardly know her. Okay. Admittedly, that one was pretty bad. Hey, wait, is that a brick? Holy shit! As a slicer, P has been contracted to travel through the entirety of this massive megastructure, and more importantly, reduce every last one of these corrupted construction drones into inanimate scrap metal. Mechanized machinery that will immediately attempt to put P in the ground without a moment's hesitation. Understandably, she's not the biggest fan of these robots that are trying to murder her. As a matter of fact, she might even be robophobic.
Flanker.
Hey, no, I see you with that Bruce Wayne Lego Batman movie.gif. Keep that shit on Twitter where it belongs. In order to accomplish this task, she'll have to deploy a wide range of combat abilities, pulling off parries and dodges, tossing assorted items and objects to stun enemies, and carving through their metallic shells. Which sounds really cool until you realize all that fancy stuff is almost entirely unnecessary for just about every combat encounter. The combat is less of a challenge and more of an opportunity to aura farm, which is a fact that unfortunately carries over into boss fights as well. But let's put a pin in that and take a moment to cover the more important aspect of this game, being the act of actually traversing up through this massive construction of steel and concrete. The parkour. I'm talking about the parkour. For you see, parkour is effectively the only way to get around, as clearly they weren't following the 15-minute walkable megastructure guidelines while building this place. Something to note about the parkouring and platforming of this 3D platformer is that it's less about building and retaining momentum by smoothly chaining together actions, and more so slowly puzzling out the route required to successfully parkour through each section, like some sort of parkour puzzle platformer. That's not to say you can't put out some smooth moves, just that it's not really required outside a select few situations, as you're rarely under pressure. Of course, that isn't to say it's not enjoyable, because when it works, it really works. So that's real sick and all that, but you're probably wondering what I meant by this. Well, to put it simply, it doesn't always work. At least not smoothly. The character controls can be a little bit janky at times. Of course, a good chunk of that jank can be ironed out by simply understanding how to properly control said character. But that's not exactly presented front and center to the player. What it comes down to is taking into consideration what buttons are being pressed at what moment, and what direction P herself is facing at that same time. Dismounted from an upward chainsaw grind and held right before re-engaging your chainsaw, but you didn't give P enough time to fully turn to the right? Well, guess which direction you're going, buddy? It's fucking up, just like you're fucking up this parkour section. Okay, it's usually not that bad, and I believe there's even been updates to address this, so you won't understand my pain. But still, you will, repeatedly, especially early on, have moments where P just doesn't feel like she's moving how you want, turning what was supposed to be a smooth transition between the crack in the wall to a wall run into P catapulting herself off the wall, promptly plummeting down and becoming a red paste on the floor of a section you were traveling through a couple hours ago, before she snaps back to reality. Oops, there goes gravity. I think the reason for this jankiness can be traced back to that parkour puzzle aspect I was talking about earlier. There's very obviously a correct way of getting through most sections, and when you're traveling the intended route, things tend to work out as intended. Shocking, I know. The problems quickly begin to arise the second you're not doing that, attempting to recover from a fall, approaching one of these stupid orb collectibles in an unconventional way, trying to go down. Like at all. I swear there is no easy way to go down a considerable distance without the end result being pasta sauce. This fact, and the rather generous automatic checkpoint system, makes backtracking for those aforementioned collectible orbs a major pain in the ass, by the way. Also, kinda wish they served more of a purpose outside of just being a collectible, but it's still mostly enjoyable to try and get them all. Anyways, with the two major gameplay mechanics of combat and movement covered, let's get back to that, as in the boss fights. Boss fights that are a mix of combat and movement, which means a combination of both their positive and negative aspects. Let me start off by saying that visually, the build-up to and the boss fights themselves are absolutely fantastic. You'll often catch glimpses of an upcoming boss when you're barely even halfway through a chapter, or it'll even be a constant set piece the entire time. And once you finally step into the ring, the bosses truly feel imposing, towering above the player as these hulking behemoths of construction equipment gone rogue. As for the actual fighting, well, it's pretty underwhelming. The boss fights can be summarized into 3 steps. Step 1. Starting the fight. Step 2. Dodging the single attack the boss manages to get off, if even that. Step 3. Climbing onto the boss, at which point all urgency is removed and it turns into simply parkouring up the boss and carving into its soft, vulnerable metal bits until it dissolves into sand. Guess you could say the bosses really bit the dust. Please don't hurt me. What's this? It says here the tomato stand on the side of the road ran out of produce. Looks like it's my lucky day. No, wait, hang on, there's more. P.S. But the construction site didn't. What does that even mean? Oh, what the f- Another unfortunate fact about the boss fights is that parrying their attack, an objectively cool and hype thing to do, effectively trivializes the fight even more. Once again, combat is almost entirely a chance to aura farm and little else. Though, given P's unconventional weapon choice for fighting massive metal robots, I suppose that shouldn't be too surprising. But you gotta admit it's cool. I mean, it's a fucking chainsaw, man. That's weird. Felt like something was supposed to be there. I do wish the bosses did a bit more to maybe shake you off, requiring repeated attempts to fully take them down. And given the sheer size of some of these mechanical giants, I'm shocked there weren't smaller enemies to fight on the boss itself. But that aside, parkour is the emphasis of the game, and unsurprisingly, it's cool as hell to scale up a giant piece of construction equipment while carving it up. Now, I've been pretty back and forth with the game so far, so before we dive into a very serious discussion, I want to highlight 1 or 2 aspects of the game that I wholeheartedly enjoy, such as the megastructure itself, and how it feels to make progress up towards the top. I couldn't even tell you how many times I'd stop just to take in the view, looking down at all the areas I'd been through, and looking up at what was left to overcome. My favorite part was seeing the boss arenas and the remains of those bosses down below. The game also completely lacks invisible walls of any kind, so you really can go anywhere, assuming you can do so safely. Additionally, the music is just really good, done entirely by Pizza Hotline, and it's what you've been hearing throughout this entire video. So with that praise out of the way, it's finally time to talk about the sleepy, bluish-green-haired chainsaw-wielding elephant in the room. The game has a very strong emphasis on interactivity with its main character P. There's a good chance that if you've seen Motorslice before, it was for something like being able to annoy P in the main menu screen until she closes the game. Other examples of this would be the selfie system, the ability to zoom in on P until she blushes and turns away, blinding her with the drone's flashlight, or getting stepped on. Of course, this all pales in comparison to the cutscenes, specifically moments spread throughout the megastructure where you're given the choice to let P slack off. It's during these moments where she'll comment about the mission, make observations about the megastructure itself, express her distaste for robots, slack off, or put those dogs front and center. To put it simply, the game is filled to the brim with fan service. Of course, I'm no patron saint, but at the end of the day, whether or not this is what you're looking for while playing games is going to come down to one's personal preference. There certainly might be some who are turned off from the game by this, and others who view this as a major selling point. But it's likely that the majority, myself included, view it with relative indifference while simply enjoying a good game. In my honest opinion, the dialogue choices are actually significantly harder to stomach. But I'm not just here to dog on these dogs. As a matter of fact, I think things like this played a very important role. Maybe not in-game, but in the game's creation. I've seen quite a few comments and reviews expressing disappointment at the lacking combat or story, saying that the developers sacrificed adding upon and polishing these aspects in favor of more passion-driven pursuits. But rather than this being neglected in favor of that, I'm of the opinion that this wouldn't exist without that. It's very clear that the developer was passionate about bringing P to life through her movements, her idle animations, her interactivity with the player, and yes, that includes the slacking off scenes. When it comes to indie games, at least the good ones, I believe that the passion to create, more often than not, sits above the desire for profit or mass appeal. Not to say it's not there, but I sincerely doubt we would have ever seen Motorslice released in any capacity if not for the developer's passion for what they created. Would I have liked more engaging combat? Of course. To learn more about the lore of this world that was only barely teased through dialogue? Absolutely. There's genuinely some really interesting snippets of lore sprinkled into cutscenes, and there's even more peculiar secrets to be found throughout the megastructure. I'm not gonna say it was a perfect game, because it certainly isn't, no matter how you slice it. But I can, without a doubt, say that it is one made with passion, and one that I enjoyed. And maybe you will too, if you consider checking it out after all this. Here's to hoping this isn't the last time we see Slicer P. And hopefully this won't be the last time you stop on by. Thanks for watching all the way through, by the way. I know I got a bit yappy there at the end, but I hope it came across as a meaningful observation and not just needless grandstanding. If you got through this video and weren't put off by the game's more suggestive aspects, I truly would recommend giving it a go. Maybe check out the free demo first to see for yourself just how much jank you can truly handle. Of course, I'd also like to give thanks to the developer for dedicating their time and passion into creating this game. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to my lovely patrons who support this channel, with an extra special thanks to Rody, Mirloon, Yuval, Michael Bradley, Wobble Wobble, Blue Stop Sign, Lovok T. Skellyman, Slimy, Cocoella, and Hopeless Titan. They get early access to these videos, along with exclusive updates, clips, polls, and more, with of course their names included here at the end. If any of that interests you, or you'd simply like to support me and these silly videos, then consider doing so. But if nothing else, like and subscribe. Until next time.